Welcome to the Franchisee Show, where we hear about the stories and secrets of the franchise pros. On today's episode of the Franchisee Show, we chat with Angelique Richardson. Angelique resides in Louisiana and is the current CFO for Eminent Enterprises. Her role is unique because she is in a position where she is both the franchisor and the franchisee. So she's able to provide us with both perspectives. Angelique also discusses the pressure and responsibilities that come with franchising. Along with that, she explains how fulfilling it is when she does things that grow businesses and the people around her. You can really hear how passionate and caring Angelique is with those around her. You really don't want to miss this one. Without further ado, the energetic and motivated Angelique Richardson. Welcome to the Franchisee Show, where we hear the stories and secrets of the franchise pros. We're here today with our very own franchise pro, Dawn Pierce.
Great to be here, and I'm looking forward to today. We've got a really unique guest with a unique position in her business. So.
Absolutely. I am excited for today. Today we're here with Angelique Richardson. Angelique is actually a franchisor and a franchisee, so she's got a unique perspective on everything. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Dawn?
You know, it would help the listeners, I think, in just real shortly, explain how you're both a franchisee and a franchisor.
I will. I am the CFO for Eminent Enterprises, and we have purchased the master franchise rights for basically the entire Gulf Coast region for Gianna King, a commercial cleaning company. So in that role, we have the rights to sell franchises, unit franchises, in the Gulf Coast market. And so we have access to about 15 regions along the Gulf Coast. And we have sold over 500 unit franchises. So we are below Gianna King International and report to them as a franchisee, but then we also are set up in that leadership guidance support role for our franchise, our unit franchises along the Gulf Coast. So we're on both sides of the relationship.
Well, you know,
awesome.
That's perfect because, you know, the first thing I'd like to talk about is kind of systems and help between the franchisor and franchisee, and you're in a perfect spot. You see both sides of it.
Right.
What kinds of things have you learned about what the franchisor should be giving and then you give on? And then secondly, go into how can you get feedback from your franchisees that help you be a better franchisor? And then how do you turn that around up the corporate ladder?
That is, I love that question. That has been the passion of what I've done for the last 12 years here at Eminent Enterprises. So there's always that conflict, a little bit of conflict between the franchisee and franchisor about who should be doing what, who should be researching, figuring out what's the best way to do it. And the argument comes down to the franchisees are out in the field. They're living it day to day. They feel the pains. So they have a very intimate knowledge of what they need to be successful. From the franchisor's perspective, we want to give our franchisees the world, right? I mean, I would do it all for them if I could. But there are some legal concerns, especially in today's kind of climate, a little bit of anti-franchise feeling out there. So we have to be very careful about the support we provide without forcing or mandating that they use it. When we look at our relationship with Gianna King International, they provide some basic technology, definitely some brand protection, a lot of marketing, those traditional things you think of when it comes to franchising. And we've provided those same things to our unit franchises. But what I found was the same, exactly how you posed your question. When you feel a lack of support or you wish your franchisor could do more, I didn't want to put ourselves in that same situation with our unit franchisees. And that's exactly what we did. We sent out a poll to our franchise owners and we asked them, our unit franchise owners, what do you need? What do you currently use? Where do you find the value and what can we help you with? We took the responses they gave us, and then we combed through what we legally could provide or what maybe was a little too invasive into their business. And then that's what we did. We partnered with vendors that they were already using for discounts, and then we reached out to vendors that they wish they could use, and we kind of put the two of them together. A lot of times in that relationship, the franchisor tries to get in the middle, right? And we made sure that we didn't. We partnered the two together, and then we stepped back and let them work.
Well, I think that's great, because what you really bring is leverage and scale in a way. You're bringing, best practice ideas, ideas that maybe on their own they would never come around to. You bring that to them, and then you give them an opportunity, as you say, we step back.
Yes, step back.
Give them an opportunity to use that scale of knowledge and things in a very positive way. And that's what a good franchisor does. At the end of the day, there's some legal limits on what you can require franchisees to do, but you want to do everything you can to help them be very successful. When they're successful, you're successful.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So Angelique, I'm curious, what took you from, because you had a very successful franchise anyway, before you bought into the master, right? What inspired you to move forward and to expand even further and to become a franchisor yourself?
Well, and we started as a franchisor from the beginning. So we didn't have we were always in that position. And that goes back to our original owner, Tom Inman. And he was very close with Janie King in the original development of the brand across the country. And that's kind of how we had this unique opportunity to own such a large area.
Yeah, it's a very large area. That's awesome though.
But what it does is, going back to your economies of scale, comment earlier, is exactly what it allowed us to do. Because we operate in so many regions, we have so many franchise owners, we were able to consolidate and have a corporate office where we kind of kept all of our accounts receivable, payroll, payables, all under one roof. And that economy of scale, we're able to spread out to our regional offices and thereby to our unit franchisees as well.
Very nice.
I mean, that leads right into another area that I think would be interesting. You've got a big organization. How did you build that organizational infrastructure to be able to, supply people with the help they need, but at the same time keep control of what's going on in the business?
So I can't take all the credit there. But the team here did it all together. And it started with one region and slowly grew from there. And there are growing pains when you move from one level to the next, and you push through that pain. Starting a new region, opening a new office is expensive. Obviously, requires a lot of upfront cost and a lot of preparation leading up to that to make sure you're prepared to take on those additional units. But I found that it does, once you get to the point where you have a consolidated corporate office and you're able to kind of share those expenses, it becomes easier to open those regional offices. So you just wait for that scale to tip, and then you take the next step to keep up.
That's right. Yeah, it's one of those things I found that you've got to keep a little bit ahead, but if you get too far ahead, you're wasting money. But if you get too far, you get behind, then control goes away. So it's a bit of a balancing act, isn't it?
Finding where that is.
That's right. And it's a constant ebb and flow too, where you push a little, you pull back until you find your comfort zone again.
So how did you learn to do that?
Painfully over the last 12 years sometimes. And you just go with it. We have kind of a fearless leader here too, Tom Inman's son, Chance Inman, and he just kind of charges forward, and we kind of all rally behind and make sure that we're picking up the slack and just
go.
finding ways.
Does the parent franchisor help you from an organization planning point of view, or is that something you had to do on your own and then transfer that on down to your franchisees?
I wouldn't say that they didn't help us, but as the largest franchise owner of the most regions within Janie King's umbrella, we kind of set the pace a little bit for the franchisor in that relationship. And so we found that we kind of blazed the way. What's nice about the relationship, though, is we're constantly feeding that information up to our franchisor, and they're sharing it with the country as well. So we still feel like we're a part of something bigger, and they give us feedback, and through our relationships with the other Janie King Master franchise owners, we get a lot of great input from them too. So it's a lot of sharing of knowledge, both up and down.
That's good. I want to shift just a little bit here. We were talking about finding balance when you in growing and where you go to, but I want to talk about the balance in your personal life. So you belong to a million organizations. I might be exaggerating a little.
Yeah, no, maybe not a million.
top 50 moneymakers in the greater New Orleans area. Like you've done pretty much everything. How do you find the balance to be a mom, to have your own personal life, to get everything accomplished and still be fulfilled in business?
Well, I was born that way. I can't take all the credit there either. Naturally high energy kind of personality. I joke all the time. I say I live 3 lives because I don't sleep a lot and I'm constantly going. And I find that I'm really fulfilled when I do those things that help grow other businesses or other people around me. And so when I go to Rotary, when I'm involved with my church and my children's school, even with the Moneymaker Award, those are things that fulfill me, not drain me. And when you're feeling fulfilled, it's easy to keep going. So
that is great.
Yeah. So you've got a lot of personal breadth. Let's talk about personal growth a little bit. When you look at yourself as a leader in your organization and the things you do, how do you grow yourself, and how do you know when to shed some responsibilities versus keep them under yourself?
Yeah, that's tough too. I try to lead a lot with both empathy and education. And so those are kind of like my key words there. And so I try to always put myself in the employee or even the franchise position to understand, maybe what their pain point is or their lack of understanding might be. And then education. So same thing, this tireless yearning for knowledge. I'm constantly not just learning about franchising, but I'm also a CPA. I'm a notary public. And so I'm constantly out there. We have a captive insurance company that now I'm an expert on. Just anything I touch, I try to be the expert, and I share that knowledge with everybody around me. So what I want is when I leave the room, everybody to be better than before I had gotten there. And that's what I do for not just my employees, but my franchise owners. And so a funny thing that I do is I give everybody a project, and that's what I call it. I have a fun project for you. And really it's a development training program for them that they don't even realize they're going through. And they get through each stage, and then there's another project waiting for them to fully develop them. So
how about you? How about you personally, as you grow? And I know from my experience, as the business grew or I went into a different role, I had to really think about what my new role and responsibility was going to be. What should I be doing? What should I stop doing? How do you do that for yourself?
So, and that has been a challenge when I transitioned from controller to CFO and had to stop actually doing the work and more conceptualizing what work needed to be done. Right. But I had a great staff under me. I'd already trained some great people that were ready to take that step, which made it easy. But it has been challenging, especially now at 12 years, to keep pushing myself to that next step. And unfortunately, I'm moving from the CFO internally to an outsourced CFO role right now. So kind of along those lines, feeling like I've kind of maxed out my growth. And now I want to offer this service.
That's it.
You're right. That's funny.
It's a huge skill set. It's something that a lot of people find a lot of benefit in. So that's amazing. So my other question is, going back to earlier, you had said there's a lot of anti-franchise feelings in your community. What is it that you're struggling with, and how, if you were to give advice to someone on how to overcome it, what would be your best advice on that?
So what I see in really the entire United States, so not even locally, locally, I feel like we have a very positive franchise atmosphere, but just nationally, you feel the pressure. There's several lawsuits out there. Franchising has lost on several major fronts, and I put us all kind of in that bucket together. And generally what it comes down to are some maybe seemingly unfair business practices. So what we've done here on the Gulf Coast is we've made sure that we always put the franchise owner first. Don, I think you said earlier, if the franchise owner is successful, you're successful. If the franchise is happy, you're happy. And exactly what we do here on the Gulf Coast. So even though we could write an FDD that is maybe more in our favor, we try to do what's fair to the franchise owner. And we never hold ourselves to the legal obligation. We bring ourselves higher. And so we have things, not just legal obligations, but moral obligations is what we call them. And to do what's right. And so, in some markets, we've stopped selling franchises, not because there aren't franchises to sell, but we want to make sure we give an abundance of work to the franchise owners that are there. And so we hold ourselves to a high standard to make sure we're not pulled under that same kind of scrutiny. we decide we were going to make sure that the decisions we make are the most beneficial for the franchise owner, so nobody ever even challenges us. But you don't see that nationally. And it generally comes down to, like you said before, having too much control, getting too involved in their business, telling them what they must do.
Yeah.
And I found you can have the same results with the carrot instead of the stick. If you use education, you educate your franchise owners. You don't have to do this, but we found that this has been successful for several other franchises,
Right.
Do it or not. I find you get a lot of buy-in. They want to do the best they can. They want to be successful. They want to make a lot of money. So they're not going to deny your advice. And I find when we educate and share that knowledge, they generally make the best decisions for their business. So.
Yeah, I think that's really important. There's always a little bit of push-pull because as a franchisor, part of your role is to help things evolve. And sometimes that means pushing a strategy in a little bit different direction, which may cost money for the franchisee. Right. So how do you get them to buy into the change and going down the strategy when it's different? Right. But at the same time, how do you do it in a way that just doesn't cram it down their throats? Because that's certainly the bad thing to do.
And I do think it's important too to recognize that what you said is we go beyond. We also have a moral obligation that we include in there. And so then you're not cajoling someone to do something. It's not as much pushing. It's more being there with them and like you said, incentivizing and making it worth it. So
because a lot of the big franchisee lawsuits that I see today are where the franchisor wants to go in a bit of a different direction. It costs money and time, and they don't sell it. They don't go in with the carrot. They go in with the stick. And then if it doesn't quite work out for the franchisee, they're saying, oh my gosh, I depended on you and this is my livelihood and you've destroyed me. And you can see why they're happening. So I think your comments are really valid. You got to start that way.
Yeah, it all starts from a position of trust too. If you go in and just try to educate and say, oh, trust me, that it doesn't work. You have to build that trust over years, make consistent, positive decisions for their business unit, and communicate when they're failing. Here's where maybe you're lacking. This is where you need to true up. And if you're communicating and you consistently make those good decisions, you build that rapport. And then when you do come out with something new and you're educating, they're much more receptive to listen.
Yeah. I know one of the big mistakes I made once was I tried to go way too fast. And it was not a great, it wasn't a great idea. And I should have gone a little slower and let people see it work and not try and make the big leap. And I think that's part of it true. If you really care for them, you have that high moral value, you have to figure out, they have to be able to buy into it. So.
And look, I hear that entrepreneur in you too, because that's what I feel like I've balanced with my leadership team here. You have this great idea and you're like, let's do it now. Let's go.
Yeah.
And so, but sometimes you have to pull back and say, well, you got to bring everybody along with you.
Right.
Especially when it comes to technology. And that's where there's so much opportunity on our horizon right now. And you bringing those unit franchisees up with you, though, you got to start basic skills like email. And then once we get you on email, okay, now you're using a computer. So now we can start bringing you into the 21st century. So
I love it. Okay. So one thing that I heard you talking about was the different avenues that you're doing and the different things that you're doing. With a personality like you, there's always something new on the horizon, right? So you mentioned the CFO role a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what your next book is?
No strategy secrets here.
Yes.
No. This is my personal next step. I'm going to be an outsourced CFO. So I'll be able to offer those CFO services to small to medium-sized businesses that aren't quite big enough to have a full-time CFO. My passion is coming in. I find the mess, I clean it up, and then I train the people around me to take it and run. And then I'll move on to the next project. So I'm hoping to provide those services to a lot of the businesses in this area.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Do you see this as just being something you do, or do you see this being evolving into a business someday?
Absolutely evolving into a business. Right now it'll just be me. But I told you what my passion is. I love meeting people, giving them the tools they need to be better than they ever thought they could be, and then watching them succeed. That brings me so much joy and fulfillment. So I couldn't imagine working on my own. I definitely am going to have a whole bunch of people. They don't have to work for me forever. Hopefully I train them out and up, and They're
I
very,
love that. I love that.
Would you do it in a franchising mode or not?
I might consider that one day. That's definitely, I've believed so passionately in what we do here at Jana King and what I've seen other franchises do, where we see people have a business and become incredibly successful where they couldn't have done it on their own. And that's really kind of, I guess, the start of that passion that I have. So I see how franchising works, and I definitely wouldn't rule that out.
Yeah.
Angelique, I am excited for interviewing you in 2 years.
Yes, that'd be great.
Other businesses are out there because you're definitely a creator, right? You are. So this is amazing. This has been a fabulous interview. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. I know that it can't be easy with everything you do. So thank you. And Dawn,
The honor was all mine.
appreciate it. Appreciate all your expertise. This has been fabulous. For those listeners out there, if you are interested in hearing more stories about people who have done it, have made it, please listen in. We've got more podcasts for you. And thank you all for being here and being part of the Franchisee Show. Thank you, Angelique. It was really interesting talking with you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. For more episodes, go to thefranchiseeshow.com.